Utah Politics.
Good Sunday morning, and thanks so much for joining us for Inside Utah Politics. I'm Glenn Mills. We begin this morning with tax reform here in Utah. Brett Hastings and Tenna Hartman are with Utah Legislative Watch, a new grassroots group focused on government accountability through the process. Great to have both of you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great
Thanks.
to be here.
Nice to be here, Glenn.
Let's talk background first. Give us a little background on the group, how this all started.
Go ahead.
Well, the group really came together. It's a truly grassroots group of concerned Utah citizens and business people that got together after the whole debacle of House Bill 441 came to light, very concerned about the process that was used to potentially pass that bill. And as one of our members, Jim Farron, said, that was a freight train. It was going to the floor of the House in a very short order after that bill had been held secret for more than a year, and it would have passed had it not been for Utah citizens springing to action and letting our lawmakers know that they did not agree with the bill nor the process that was used.
The business community certainly came out in full force in opposition to this bill. The two of you said you've never even met each other prior to this.
No.
This brought you together. I assume that's probably the case with other members of the group as well.
Yeah, really it was a good old-fashioned calling tree. You know, one person knew another person, and we just started calling other members of the business community and letting them know what was going on at the Capitol and when to show up and when the bill was going to be set to be read on the floor. And everybody just showed out, and we had great support, and that's how a lot of us got to know one another.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the makeup of the group. Tell us a little bit about your personal backgrounds and more about people from the group as well.
Okay. Well, I'm a native of Utah. I was born here in Utah. I grew up in southern Idaho. I'm a married family man and businessman here. I've got two children that go to school here in the state, to university. And I'm an attorney. And I found out about House Bill 441 through, again, just word of mouth and associations, and then found out about the group that ultimately became Utah Legislative Watch. It's a group of about a dozen people.
You're a lawyer, correct? That is your business.
Correct.
How were you worried about that impacting your business?
Well, I think the bar came out strongly against the bill. One of the things is that the big issue was pyramiding of taxes, sales taxes on sales taxes. As an attorney, I use many services, court reporters, and those types of things. The bill, as it was originally crafted, would have charged sales tax on those services that I would have had to pass along to my clients, and then when they got my bill, I would have to tax its sales tax on top of that. So it was a pyramiding of tax that wasn't properly addressed.
Yeah, the broadcasting industry was also very worried about that, I know, and so were vacation industry as well. Tell us a little bit about yourself, also a small business owner.
Yeah, I'm a native to Utah. I grew up here. I am a business owner, and I've owned my own business since 2009. I work in the healthcare sector and do consulting and specialty things for large corporations. And I have 5 children. And as we started to look at the sales tax bill, there were many industries that it really hit, the financial industry especially, our industry. And some of these industries have contracts in place already, you know, 1-, 2-, 3-year contracts that preclude us from increasing our rates or doing anything like that, and so that would have hit, you know, our companies really hard. Also, when we started looking at it as far as our families go, when we started looking at things that we use every day, such as hair services or lawn services, even though there were some carve-outs and there was a dollar amount in it, on average, we figured out it would hit our budgets between $300 and $500 a year just for the average family. And when you're talking about young kids starting out or young businesses, that's a lot of money just for services that we use every single day. And so
let's move on to the next process. The task force has been named, it's set. The first meeting will be on Thursday. What are your concerns, and what will you be watching for now as we move forward? Because their plan is to travel around the state and to collect input from folks such as yourself and other Utahns from all walks of life.
Well, I think our primary concern is making sure that the question, the issue, is properly defined. When we were up on the Hill, and during the committee meeting for House Bill 441, there was a lot of talk about a fiscal cliff. The idea that we're just not collecting enough sales tax because we've become a service economy. And one of our big concerns is, as we looked at the data the data just didn't bear that out. Sales tax collections in Utah have been steadily on the rise for the last decade. We're collecting more sales tax today than we ever have before. And the idea that we're not selling enough taxable goods is also not borne out by the data. If you look at sales tax collections as a percentage of Utah GDP, that is also on the rise. That tells us that we are selling more taxable goods today than we ever have before and collecting more sales tax as a consequence. So that whole narrative is just not correct. It's a misinformation campaign, and we hope that the task force, as they tour the state, will present true statistics to bear out what the problem is.
So in my conversations with members of the task force and leadership, there's been kind of a shift in the narrative, really, that it's not a revenue problem, but it's a structure problem. So one question I have for you guys, are you completely opposed to reform in any fashion, or do you see a need for some reform on a structural basis?
You know, we are not opposed to reform. We just think it needs to be handled in an appropriate manner. As we've looked at this, there are many other options to service sales tax. We do think that there's a structural problem in that, for example, our Utah Constitution only allows for income tax to go to education, and we're not really allowed to use that money for anything else. And so as a result of that, because income has increased in the state of Utah, we have a surplus in that fund. And so that could be looked at with some protections for the education fund, because we want to support our teachers and those that are teaching our children. Also, if we look at things like Utah lands, I mean, that's another option. We can look at the fact that we only own 20% of our Utah lands, and if we owned more, it's about $3.5 billion in revenue to the state. And right now we're only getting $35 million off of those Utah lands. There's also other options that are in play. We can restructure the budget. We could look at, you know, we don't like this suggestion, but we're not looking at it. You know, we can look at a lottery. We could look at taxing online sports betting. I mean, there's a lot of other options that we could look at.
Yeah, as far as those latter options, I think the governor's made it pretty clear that Utah's not going to go there.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, it is an option. They say all options are on the table. At the Utah Taxpayers Association meeting on Tuesday, Representative Spenlove said, look, we could even look at some really bold new ideas here, maybe eliminating the income tax, and as you talked about, really taking a look at the budget. Do you see basically all options on the table here?
Well, I think we can look at all options, but really I think that the structural problem that we have can be solved very simply.
How so?
Remember, the structure that we have is we have all of this money that's limited to education because it's a tax on income. What our legislators want to do is move some of that money into the general fund. And the idea, at least that was presented for HB 441, was to lower the income tax and move that into the general fund.
Right.
It didn't really do that when you read the bill.
So you think you can accomplish that through an amendment to the Constitution?
Well, an amendment is probably the hardest way, but that is one way. There is a really elegant, easy way to do it that has been tried in other states. I call it a fee and credit solution.
We have about 10 seconds, so try to sum it up as quick as you can.
Basically, you charge a fee to file a tax return with a commensurate credit. $100 fee, $100 credit. To the taxpayer at zero. That $100 is now not a tax on income. It's a fee or tax that goes to the general fund, not to the education fund.
All right, lots of ideas, and the task force will be collecting those ideas across the state. We will continue to watch how that plays out. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much for being here. And if you would like to know more about Utah Legislative Watch, you can find them at utahlegislativewatch.org. They have information there on how to get involved and be part of the process as well. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Still to come, our women